August marked 10 years since the death of Michael Brown in Ferguson. Communities and organizations across the region marked the anniversary with art exhibits, discussions, and memorials. The passing of 10 years also means that there's a whole generation of young people who weren't born or were too young to remember what happened on Canfield Drive and the events that took place in the following weeks and months, which makes preserving what happened there, the tragedy that took place, the heartbreak of a region, and the resiliency of a community that much more important.
I mean, people would just literally find a spot and paint was donated and other people would bring their paints and they'd just start painting.
This is Carol Klein.
But I like the message, we mattered together. I think that's nice.
I first spoke with her in 2015. At that time, she was writing a children's book called Painting for Peace in Ferguson.
The book is really empowerment. It's really about using whatever tools that you have to make your community a better place.
Klein was referring to art. After the unrest following the grand jury's decision not to indict Officer Darren Wilson in the death of Michael Brown, many small businesses in Ferguson were left heavily damaged or destroyed.
I grew up in Ferguson. I just came down there saying, well, I can do something. I'll go and, support small businesses on Small Business Saturday. I literally saw hundreds of artists come out, and they were taking just blocks and blocks and blocks of boarded up buildings and transforming them into these incredible works of art. And I was just overwhelmed, and I decided there and then that I was going to write a book.
Klein's book was about these artists who, in uncertain and scary times, came together to help and lift a community with their messages of truth, hope, and irrepressible spirit. It was a success. She gave all the profits to the community, and that could have been it.
We'll know what to do. We'll bring out our paints, red, yellow, and blue.
But it wasn't.
So after I wrote the book, I started talking to some of the store owners because they didn't have any place to store their art. And I said, if I take good care of it, would you let me use it in hopes that it would be displayed someday?
Why? What did you think having these in the future was going to do?
So, you're supposed to have a plan and a blueprint, and none of that was the case here. This was all just really serendipity.
Klein started hauling the murals away in the back of her minivan. She managed to save more than 50 pieces from the Ferguson and Delwood areas, and for years stored them in various places. And they were seen in a few exhibits. But finding them a permanent home on permanent display was always her goal. Were you ever feeling a burden of, I have these things, these are important, I've taken this on, and I need to make sure something happens?
Yes, exactly. Then we had this little thing called the pandemic hit. So I didn't really have an opportunity to go around and show people what these were and where they could be placed, and I had kind of a nightmare scenario that they would be scattered all over the city. It was really important to me that these not go into private collections. It was a gift from the community to the community, and I felt it was really important that it stay accessible to the community.
Yeah, and your serendipity came in the form of Maxine Clark.
Absolutely.
Let's go in the front of the healer. One of my very favorites, especially with all the Band-Aids.
During the pandemic, Maxine Clark, founder of Build-A-Bear, was transforming a vacant 100,000 square foot building on Delmar Boulevard, a passion that was also inspired by what happened in 2014 and the issues of racial inequities.
It's right after Michael Brown had been killed in Ferguson. I was sitting with children, talking to them and listening to what they wanted and needed. And all of those things existed in St. Louis. They just didn't know where they were or how to access them. And I started thinking then that, what can I do? Now that I know there's this issue, what can I do to correct it?
Clark developed the Delmar Divine in an effort to create a neighborhood of education, healthcare, and community development nonprofits that work together to affect change.
And She's ready to open the building at the end of the pandemic, and I'm looking for somewhere that has a lot of room. So I put a couple of feelers out, one of which was to Maxine, sent her an email, and literally 15 minutes later, she responded and said, I'll take all of them. And I was like, wait, Maxine, there's a lot. And she's like, I have a lot of walls.
She had it in storage for all those years, just hoping that there would be one place that could house them all. And when I knew we could, I said, we can have it all.
So Klein got to work. She hired artists to restore and protect the murals. Professional curators designed the layout.
We kind of did three-dimensional Tetris on an enormous scale because some of these pieces are 25 feet long by 8 foot high. And how do you get them to fit, and how do you have a theme that kind of works? But we were, frankly, only had the Ferguson paintings, and we were running out of paintings.
44 murals from Ferguson were on the walls at the Delmar Divine. But remember, it's a huge building, and there's a lot of space. St. Louis University saved the murals made for the businesses in the South Grand neighborhood, and Klein received 33 of those to complete the installation. 77 murals in total.
I like to describe it as kind of art therapy for the entire community.
You know, every day that I look at it, I walk in, I am so happy that what we're doing here, but it's also enhanced by the ability to see that even though the artists may not have known they were building something or painting something for a long time, they were just trying to protect those buildings and heal themselves, that they would be healing 10 years later, 20 years later, hopefully, and 30 and 40 and maybe 100.
For Living St. Louis, I'm Anne-Marie Berger.